How's that?
Yay!
Should I go on mute until you need me?
So is the camera issue resolved too? Or? Okay. Okay. That's really a shame that people can't see us, so that's. Any of you people watching tonight are very lucky. You don't have to look at us tonight, but we are here, so. Okay. All right, are we ready?
Yep, ready, command.
Okay. All right, good evening. It is 7 PM on Monday, July 8th, 2026. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the Whole meeting. Mike, can we have a roll call for the committee meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark.
Here.
Trustee Whitehead. Not present. Trustee Hendricks.
Here.
Trustee Naramatsu.
Here.
Trustee Gilhuli.
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Here.
President Garvey.
Here. Thank you. And I don't, for just, if anyone's listening or watching, or the cameras aren't fully working, so you can't see the village board, but 5 of the 6 trustees are here, the village clerk and the village president's here. But you should be able to hear all the audio. We have 2 items up for discussion under regular business. The first is a discussion concerning case number 2607, a request for a special use permit, section 62-25, to allow a cannabis dispensary at 9500 Ogden Avenue. I'm going to turn it over to Libby Popovic for a presentation. Again, we have a board packet that we've had a chance to review, but there is a presentation that will give the applicant a chance, and there'll be a chance for public comment. So,
Thank you, President Garvey. We have the rendering here, or not the rendering, the photo of the 9500 to 908 Ogden Street development. That is the current site as it sits right now. It is a vacant site. We do have the applicant that is before us, again for the second time, for a special use permit. This was unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission that recommended it for further board review and approved it favorably. Here we have the proposed retail development, and we do have the operator here, Water and Trees, with Tanya Griffin, that you've spoken to before, and we have Mr. Jordan Levinson. He's on the call, who will be making a statement as well. He is the co-owner of IC Collective and the founder of Collective and the owner of IC Brookfield Dispensary. So he'll be able to speak in detail if you have additional questions regarding the development, the redevelopment, and the operations of the dispensary as well. Here we have the subject property from another angle. You can see the top, so view looking north on Ogden. Then we also have a bird's eye view from the top looking at the entire parcel. And the subject property is zoned SA3, and it is surrounded by SA3 properties. It's a commercial corridor right there on Ogden. Special use permit standard, you do have it in your packet, but just as a reminder, the proposed use is compatibility with existing uses on the site and in the vicinity. The second part is proposed uses compatibility with the intent and purpose of the property's zoning district. And then the third one is any special actions, if any, that are contemplated to modify any unique, special, or unusual impacts with the special use can cause or intensify on the properties. Here you'll see the interior plan, and the applicant can speak more specifically to it. You have a proposed rendering. Now, following the planning and zoning's recommendations on some of the exterior, the applicant did go back to the drawing board to enhance some of the building. The roof is going to be raised. There's additional windows that are included, and I'll let the applicant speak to that. You have interior images as well as to how the dispensary is going to be laid out. You have the subject property, again, from a different angle, showing it from the parking lot, and then the one on the bottom is showing it, that's the corner of Dubois and Ogden. And another bird's eye view showing the parking, plenty of parking with a dedicated loading spot, with handicap parking, and with dedicated space for rubbish. Proposed exterior, Applicant will speak in detail regarding that. And the anticipated sales tax projections, and these are projections from the pro forma that was provided to staff to review, which we did review previously as well, showing anticipated sales tax projections for 2027, 28, and 29. With that, I'll open it to any questions.
Thank you. At this time, do any board members have questions of Libby, or, I mean, I could have the applicant make any presentation they would like to, unless you have questions for Libby at this point? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just have a question about the parking lot. Does it go into the alley behind? No, I
Excuse
know,
me,
but after-
sorry, I'll give you a chance for public comment, but we have,
That-
that's,
The car, I think that's just a rendering, that is not parking. So
There is a public alley that runs just to the north of the building. That's a village-owned parcel. It's not, the petitioner, no private individual owns the alley, the village does.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the alley will remain at does the parking lot?
Yeah, you can't,
And?
this is just a rendering
Rendered.
to give an idea of what the concept will be. It makes it look like it's part of the parking lot, but it is not.
Okay.
So is there a possibility for entrance or exit
Oh.
into that alley from the parking lot, I suppose? Is the
Well,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, it's a public alley, so just like Imperial Oak,
Right.
Imperial Oak uses the alley, all businesses along alleys, wherever they are in the village, it's there for that purpose. It's a public access point.
Is it currently paved?
It is not, I don't believe.
No.
This was definitely one of the questions that came up in the Plan Commission from the commissioners.
So right now, the only entrance and exit would be off of Ogden, the official entrance and exit?
Yes. And the applicant can speak to it in greater detail.
I could have a question, it could be for you or the applicant. I think I read in the board packet that there was, like, proposed landscaping or border between the Imperial Oak parking lot, like the west side parking lot. I don't see it in the rendering, I couldn't quite see in the board packet, but it just had some questions on, like, the defining lines of the parking lot again. And again, to Trustee Dermotz's question, does the parking go all the way to the alley? Like, is there any barrier, I guess, between the last parking spaces and the alley?
I'll let the applicant speak to
Great.
that.
Thank you. Sure.
yeah, and I didn't know if you had a planned presentation. You don't have to, you made the presentations of Planning and Zoning Commission, but you do have an opportunity here to make any additional presentation or just address questions that you've heard from audience members or village board members, or if any member of your team wants to address questions. But the floor is yours if you'd like to say anything.
Thank you so much. Thank you
And-
guys for having me back, of course.
And again, if you could just, we know who you are, but if you could state your name just for the record.
Yes, my name is, thanks, Libby. My name is Tanya Griffin. I live at 1140 Bannock, Denver, Colorado. Again, thank you guys for having me back. This has been a journey together. Of course, my kids are not here. They just boarded a flight, an Aer Lingus flight to Ireland, so they are missing out. One of the things that has changed over the last several months when we first came before you to locate a dispensary on 31st Street is when we listened. We understand that the preferred location is indeed here on Ogden, since you passed inviting a dispensary into Brookfield in 2019. Unfortunately, you used to see me sitting beside the Laws family. They did not meet their zoning requirements for the DECO loan, and as a result, we're not able to get behind this project, and that's unfortunate. And I really, my heart goes out to them. We're going to find them an alternative location. The good news for Brookfield, though, is that we really worked closely with village staff and put together a redevelopment plan with the dispensary looking at 9500 and of course the adjacent parcel 9508 to redevelop that corner, bring a dispensary to Brookfield. Jordan Levinson, who's patiently waiting on the phone, is a native Chicago resident, or native Chicagoan, but he is a serial entrepreneur, a very successful entrepreneur. Cannabis is one piece of his puzzle of the developments that he does throughout Illinois, and particularly in the city of Chicago. So I do come to you with a new team, a team that has the financial wherewithal to invest in Brookfield. From the get-go, I was pretty clear that I wanted to bring a dispensary to Brookfield ever since the medical program started in 2013. I did locate dispensaries, multiple dispensaries throughout Illinois, and I'm coming back to you to locate a dispensary here. What we do when we build dispensaries, Jordan and I and our team and our entire team, 1919 Architects, premium construction group who does lots of big developments through the state of Illinois, and IC Collective. I thought I should talk a little bit about what has changed with regard to bringing a dispensary to Brookfield. Jordan Levinson and his team, he's co-founded, I would argue, probably the top craft grow in the state of Illinois, IC Collective. What that means is this dispensary will be vertically integrated. And I'm going to let Jordan speak, but one of the things that's super important to him is bringing everyday low prices into the dispensary world. That's atypical of Illinois dispensaries. It tends to be a race to the bottom, a lot of BOGO deals. That's not how Jordan does business. So not only will we bring in everyday low prices with regard to flower and pre-rolls and cartridges via IC Collective and every other brand, but it's super important to me, as it is important to Jordan, to be your neighborhood dispensary. So that means that we're not only serving the residents of Brookfield, but we are opening our doors to LaGrange, for example, and bringing that business to the community. When we projected our pro forma, which we provided to you guys, those were very conservative estimates on our gross revenue, to be honest. The neighboring dispensary close to us does, roughly about $1 million a month in revenue. And if we build this the way I am suggesting that we build on that building at 9,500, I think that we are going to have a very similar trajectory in Brookfield. So I'm very excited to bring you that. Livy kindly went over some of the buildings, and I might stop now and just answer questions for you guys about what we're thinking. We did have a very good meeting with planning and zoning. Some of you guys were there. They did ask the questions about egress through the alley, how we move traffic, on Dubois or coming out of Ogden. The real answer is this. We have been working over the last several months so closely with Scott and Livy and Tim and village staff to make sure that we are super responsive, that we're giving you exactly what the village also envisions for this dispensary. One of the things that we modified with Ron Billy at 1919 Architects is to make sure that when we take that dilapidated building, we clean up the facade significantly, that we raise the roof significantly, 10 feet just is in terms of the ceiling height minimum inside, but the facade extends beyond that, that we make sure in keeping with village, with planning and zoning, that we make sure that we have a very attractive view coming toward Dubois, just as we do coming from LaGrange. Jordan, I'm going to be quiet and let him speak. When he does these investments across the country, but particularly here in Illinois, he doesn't do anything halfway. I could tell you about some of his other businesses, but you would be very impressed. And what he's looking to do is be a community partner in Brookfield, as we all are. Libby, maybe do we jump to one of the pictures so we can ask? Oh gosh, it's me. Thank you, guys. All right, let's see what we got here. I may need some technical. Oh, I'm going to go to the parking lot and kind of show you. So everyone knows the building that we're talking about at 9500. Currently, it does need some work. It's falling down to some extent. So immediately, if you approved this use as a special use permit, we would, Steve and our project manager, who has showed up every single time of these meetings, of course, lives behind 31st Street in Brookfield, Ryan Baker. My entire family would be here if half of them didn't leave for Ireland as we passed at O'Hare. I think I'm gonna, one of the things that were super important to the village staff is that we paid very close attention to landscaping, which is part of the questions of if we're gonna have some landscaping between the parking lot of Imperial Oak and the dispensary. The answer to those questions is absolutely yes. We intend to bring in trees. We intend to, if you approve us, of course, landscape on Du Bois, keep that big, beautiful tree that's on Ogden, but create additional trees. And we'd also like to work very closely with Imperial Oak, with Chris and his partners, and make sure that everything we're doing is in keeping with what you guys want in Brookfield. I think I'm going to stop talking for a minute and open it up to questions, unless you'd like to hear from Jordan first.
well, let
Or
me
you're
see.
welcome to ask me questions.
Let's see, did board members have any questions for Tanya at this point?
I don't think so. We can hear from Jordan.
Okay.
Sure.
Jordan, are
Thank
you
you.
with us?
I'm
Thank
with you,
Steve.
yes.
Okay, thank you. It's like you're the gods coming down.
Welcome,
yeah,
welcome, Jordan. If you could just state your full name for the record, please.
My full name is Jordan Levinson.
Thank you, Jordan. And you could go ahead if there's any presentation or comments you like making, then if you'd make yourself available for questions.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet, and the bottom line is, first I'd like to say thank you to the Village of Brookfield and whoever else has come tonight. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we started this venture. Well, in terms of my background, I'm like Tanya said, I'm a serial entrepreneur, real estate, tech, restaurant. Throw a nice little love to my restaurant in Deerfield called Carson's Ribs. I'm a partner in Carson's Ribs. I'm sure people know about that. But in all seriousness, you know, I started this project in 2020 with a group of amazing people. And we built an amazing facility. We won a craft grow license. We were one of the 40 that won. We were one of the first to come out. When the inspectors and from the state come to our facility, they're like, you guys aren't a craft grow. You guys are like one of the big boys. Like we did things 1,010% correct by the book. We have not gotten in trouble by the state once. We wear halos around our head. You know, we're proud of our facility. And we grow a good product, and we really care about our product, and we want to bring that same caring respect to the dispensary world now, and what better place than a place that I grew up going to the zoo, and I feel blessed. So I look forward to working with you guys, and I hope everything, you know, we will do everything we can in our arsenal to make everybody happy. And yeah, I think Tanya's been great at leading this team in Brookfield, and we really look forward to this. So with that being said, I'm going to lead everything over to Tanya, as she's been the ringleader.
Thank you, Jordan. Again, board members have any questions that seem like Jordan would need to address? Or I do know that some new people walked in during the meeting, so I will give it another chance for public comment if the board's okay with that. We like to.
Yes, I have a couple more questions about the things that you mentioned were hearing from the zoning commission and looking to address in a next round. So can you talk a little bit more about the, you know, the, how it will look from each side so that
Yes.
it's not just the one entrance? Or it's like, it is one entrance, but that it looks inviting
That it
from all
looks
sides?
inviting, yes, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. So it is one entrance, and that's by way of IDFPR regulations. So you do come in, we have 18 parking spaces that stretch all the way to the border where Imperial Oak and us meet. One of the cool things we want to do with the building is get in, immediately raise the roof, but you see on the side there where that facade, the roof is raised, but we want to go above that so that when you're coming toward LaGrange, you're seeing detail, and then on the front. Let me get you guys some more pictures. Does that make more sense of how it looks coming from both angles? And the previous picture that we showed to planning and zoning wasn't as dialed in as we wanted to be, mostly because it is our intention to keep doing what we're doing, which is to work very closely with Tim, Scott, and Libby, and to make sure that we're giving you a building that you want and the landscaping that you want.
And the signage would be on Ogden and
Yes.
on the front, not on Du Bois?
So your ordinance have just changed to some degree, so we're following, but we're following the station ordinance. We didn't give you signage projections because we're working pretty closely with the village once we do permits, but to answer your question, we would like to put the name of the dispensary on both sides, which would be ideal for us, yes.
Other questions?
Do you have any renderings of what that sign would look like?
Not at this meeting, but I will get it, we'll get it over to Libby and Scott straight away. Part of that was, there was a couple reasons for that. This is special use, so we didn't want to like show our name and everything to the public before it came out, but we will get all of that to you and have it circulated immediately, because we do have it.
Okay, thanks.
It looks from, sorry, didn't want to, okay. It looks from the plans we have here that the circulation in the parking lot is essentially going to go through the alley at one point, or it's certainly very open to the alley. Have staff and the petitioner had conversations since the Plan Commission meeting about the use of the alley and the right in, right out, or any of those possibilities?
We haven't had any extensive discussions regarding the use of the alley. As was mentioned, that the alley could potentially be vacated down the road if another development for the entire Congress Park area is developed. So it's an unknown at this point.
Okay, that could definitely make it difficult for the circulation in this parking lot. Would that be staff's recommendation, is to vacate that alley at some point?
No.
Not at this time.
We've had they have the legal right to access the alley, as any
Sure.
business does, so we have not entered discussions with them or any other developer in the future that hopefully will be developing to the north. There's a potential to vacate the alley, and if the alley ever is vacated, there'll have to be easements for access easements and so forth for if these are the owners of this property or for the property to the north.
Have there been any discussions about paving the alley?
By us?
Any
No.
discussions at all?
No.
We, by the way, are very open to paving the alley, if that would be
Excellent
requested.
condition.
Yes, yes.
We'll continue those discussions.
That's
then.
exactly.
That's excellent.
We really are listening to village staff to figure out what you guys want done, and we're gonna, we want to be a part of this community and contribute to the community. Part of the reason why those discussions weren't had is we are interested in the Fuller development. You've got property also that wraps around Congress Metro, so we're in discussions about that. And I think where we were at is if we couldn't get too deep into the alley until we really understood the entire objective. This building, on the other hand, was an easier lift for us. The architect is very engaged, so we are, if you approve this special use, we will move immediately into, we've got the preliminary drawings done, we'll move immediately into MEPs, and we will get this project done very quickly, completely adhering to your desires for that alleyway.
I do appreciate that. I know that the plan commissioners sort of went back and forth on should there be a right in, right out? Should there be limitations on who can exit where on this property? For me, it seems like the safest situation would be to actually allow people to exit through the alley and come back up to the light if they want to go east on Ogden. I mean, it's a commercial space, that's a light, so that they're not trying to turn left out of there into traffic. So that's my 2 cents for what it's worth on that topic.
Do we have control over the lights at Du Bois and Ogden?
Only through IDOT.
Okay.
Both legs of that signalized intersection, as Trustee Hendricks mentioned, this is an IDOT highway, so
Right.
all the access points are designed with ease of transit involved. Any change to any leg of that intersection of the way it's lit would have to be done through the state.
Okay. Yeah, I think turning left out of there might be difficult, but during certain hours of the day, during the weekdays, that light can get backed up because of commuter traffic. So I'm just curious as to how that light can be adjusted to accommodate, but maybe it's not a big deal. I don't know.
We deal with IDOT mainly through Hancock's offices all the time with traffic signal timing and signalization and so forth. And if there was a large backup, which we're not anticipating from this development, but if that were to happen, we do what we always do. We call the local engineer, the resident engineer, they come out there and they do a study. It takes a few weeks or months, and then they make adjustments.
Okay. Thank you.
Just 2 questions to the application. Were notices sent out to the neighboring properties?
Yes, they were.
Because there's no affidavit in here that says that.
We did send them all out. We actually used priority printing, and we followed Scott's instructions exactly. So the answer is yes.
Okay, because it's checked off that the affidavit is here. There's no affidavit within this.
Libby, do you know what that is?
And then the other question, this is no longer prolific dispensary.
No, previously, we were representing the Laws family. Unfortunately, the timing on 31st Street meant that they didn't get the $245,000 DECA loan and had to.
That's fine. The reason I bring that up,
Yeah.
in the conditions, it mentions this is being granted to the prolific dispensary. Number 2, the conditions the plan commission passed.
That was.
In the staff memo, it is, number 2, is special use permit is granted to Tanya Griffin /IC Collective, Inc., because that is the new applicant that is attached to the application.
So is that different than what was at the plan commission?
Yes, at that time it had prolific, that was corrected, because the applicant is the one that matches the one that's on the application, which is IC Collective with Mr. Jordan Levinson.
Okay, thanks.
Are there other questions at this point? What I'd like to do with the board's indulgence, some people just walked in. There is a chance for public comment at the end of the committee of the whole meeting, but we have another item after this. I'm going to ask and see if there's any other public comment related to this specific item in the audience. Is the board okay with that? Okay. So, here, let me just go on the side. Is there anyone on my right side that would like to make any comments regarding the case 2607, request for a special use to allow a cannabis dispensary at 9500 Ogden from this side? Okay. Sorry, now moving to the side. Pick who comes up first. Ladies first.
Hello, my name is the Reverend Vicky Carthanassis. I live at 4017 Du Bois Boulevard. I have some prepared remarks, but I also want to respond to this presentation itself. My house would be included in this presentation if the renderings hadn't blurred it out and made it seem as though it doesn't exist, myself along with my neighbors' houses. These renderings make it look like this is not being built on a residential street, but the backside of this building is on Du Bois, and it is a residential street. I'm watching in front of me really casual discussions about putting significant traffic onto my street and redirecting it there, while also insisting that this is a commercial location, which is kind of bizarre because it's not. I'm listening to people saying that they want to be part of the neighborhood, but not a single person on my entire street was asked anything about this. We weren't given any chance to give any special kind of input or suggestions on how to make this work more for the community. And by community, I mean the actual community that this location is in, not some grand, very large sense of Brookfield that isn't nearby. I'm concerned about the alley as well. We are saying that we're going to be entering in through this entrance on Ogden, but we all know that the alley also exists on Du Bois. People already speed going down Burlington into Du Bois and the alley. That will continue to be a thorough road, and it will continue even more so if we are intentionally redirecting traffic to the light. The light does not have a green turn arrow, so that will not substantially alleviate traffic in that capacity either. So I'm a pastor in the Lutheran Church, and I wanted to express my disappointment on how leadership within Brookfield has been handling this issue. As I said, I live on Du Bois, directly across the street from where the dispensary is intended to go. It's a quiet residential street that already struggles to accommodate with the traffic from the train station, but that traffic is confined to rush hours. I don't believe adding additional congestion to this area will be helpful. I understand that the argument that is being made is it's not going on Du Bois, it's going on Ogden, but we can look at the image right in front of us and see that the building is also on Du Bois. I think we can all understand, and we're rational enough humans to know that when a building is located on a corner of two streets, it means it's on both of them, and the needs of both of the affected streets should be taken into effect. The reality is that the town is contemplating putting a sizable commercial building on a residential street, and you can zone it how you want so that it technically has an Ogden address, but that doesn't change the geographic reality that it's also existing on Du Bois, which is residential. I don't think we should be having signs for the business on Du Bois. I think doing that would just encourage people to be using Du Bois as an entrance for the building. I think at the very least, signage should not be going on that street. And no one on our block of Du Bois was given any particular notice over and above what people on the opposite side of town were given about this. Technically, my household wasn't given notice about this meeting at all. The letter Brookfield sent to my house was addressed to the previous owners who haven't lived here in over 10 years. The only reason I found out about the meeting is I didn't notice the addressee and opened it by mistake. And it's really curious that every other piece of mail sent to our address from Brookfield has our names on it, but on this specific one, it had the previous owners. I remember all the visioning meetings we had for this location. Brookfield asked residents what they wanted to see here, and they overwhelmingly voiced a desire for a grocery store, or a daycare, or a coffee shop even, or mixed-use retail and homes. All sorts of things that are entirely missing from Brookfield's southwest side, and I was really hopeful that Brookfield was finally, for once, listening to residents on the south side and addressing our needs as well, instead of prioritizing areas further north to our detriment. And our area needs attention. The block is currently overwhelmed with rats, which the city hasn't done anything about. The alleys here are largely a series of potholes with stagnant water in them that does nothing to help with the rat issue. And frankly, if we're paving the alley specifically for the dispensary and not the alley on the other side, which is 3 massive potholes that are just constantly full of water, that's just adding more insult to the residents that live here. People are constantly speeding down the road from Burlington to Ogden, and there's no enforcement of that, just parking violations for street cleaning that often doesn't actually happen here. The location in question for the dispensary is itself prone to flooding, though I suppose they could just have major issues with the plumbing. Either way, I've watched the previous tenants removing waterlogged and damaged belongings from the premises numerous times. But there is nothing in this proposal that pledges that any of the money coming from this building will go back to the local community. And again, by local community, I mean the actual community the dispensary is in. We will be facing more traffic, more speeding, more loud noise from the building, reduced parking. Our property values are projected to decrease from this, and yet not a single plan in place to return anything to this area in exchange. At a certain point, it feels as though the people on the 4,000 block of Du Bois are the ones giving revenue to the city, since the projected money coming into the city from the building in the first year is not significantly higher than the projections for our combined loss in property values. But what is most disappointing to me is how very different this dispensary decision has been going compared to the last ones. Brookfield already proposed to building a dispensary in Ogden and Prairie. The building is still half completed, but it was abandoned due to lack of funds. And so the building just stands there like that. I'm confused why, if a dispensary must be built, and to be clear, I don't think one does, and that it needs to be built on Ogden, that we need yet another new location for it and can't just use the existing one. Before that, Brookfield tried to open yet another one this past December. And that time, the dispensary was at 31st and Park, and that area got a chance to voice their opinion. It was well publicized, and there was over 2 months before the first meeting and the final vote. Our area didn't get that same opportunity. Many of our households didn't even get notices in the mail. Perhaps the local businesses got certified mailings letting them know about this, but not a single residence did. And I really think that we should have been able to know about this and to have our opinions voiced as well, not just the businesses. Most people in the area weren't even aware that this was taking place until they talked to one of the handful of people who were aware. And I don't think it's coincidence how different the amplification of these two meetings were. Nor do I think it's a coincidence that having a dispensary at 31st and Park was shut down due to public disapproval, but placing it in Ogden and Du Bois, a mile and a half away, is being viewed as a good move. It's no secret that the southwest side of Brookfield has higher concentrations of people of color and immigrants and blue-collar workers than any other area of Brookfield does. Every single household on that street fits into one of those boxes. I know that because they're my neighbors and I know them. Perhaps it's not the intention of this board to say it, but what is being signaled by these actions and this proposal, whether it's the intention or not, is that yes, it makes sense that the nice, predominantly white neighborhood a mile up the road is right to oppose a dispensary being located in their area. We will simply move one further away from them, near where more immigrants and more people of color live instead, because it doesn't matter as much what they think, nor should they expect the same standard. And it makes me sad to contemplate that this is how the town I live in is making decisions. I can think of no other logical reason why we're approving a new dispensary in this location that can't even get proper general maintenance attention when the exact same applicant was already told no earlier this year. And again, I really hope that's not the case. I hope this is just a matter of not thinking things through. But when people hear this and hear about where it's being proposed, more than one person, even people that don't live in this town, has scoffed and said, yeah, that makes sense. Put it by the people of color, right? Typical Brookfield. It makes me sad that that's the reputation we have. I've been so excited that Brookfield was going to finally take the needs of Congress Park neighborhood into account and develop the area with businesses that would be helpful to local residents. I've been so hopeful that perhaps one of the numerous areas of administrative and policy neglect that our area had been subject to for decades would finally be addressed. It is disheartening to see that once again proposals are being made to profit the needs and desires of higher income, predominantly white areas of our town at our expense. These are the sorts of redlining decisions that I would have hoped Brookfield had grown past in the 21st century. As a minister, I am required to speak up when I see the poor and vulnerable groups being taken advantage of. Many of these working class families are at or traveling home from work right now and cannot afford to take time off to come to this meeting and express their opinions. That's why I'm here today. My profession requires I speak in their place. I took their feedback to heart when I prepared these remarks. The southwest side of Brookfield is beautiful and happy. This area has so much potential to fit one of the many previously proposed ideas for this location, as outlined in the city's so-called master plan. A plan that our tax dollars went towards funding, but that with this proposal seems to have since been wholly disregarded. It feels like that we got bait and switched, promised all these things that would improve the area and address our needs, that long overdue maintenance and infrastructure needs from the town would finally be provided to our area, and instead we're just being told to accept something that other areas have already rejected for themselves. I think the board already knows that this isn't the best idea and isn't the most desirable kind of business to have near residences. That's why the proposal is to be built as far away from your residences as it possibly can be while still being in town limits, right? It's my sincere hope that you all find it in your heart to treat others the way you'd want to be treated. If you didn't want a dispensary near your house, why would that be a good thing to do to others? Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Sir?
Again, my name is Emmanuel Krathenansis of 4017 Du Bois Boulevard. I actually had a question. Will there be public comment before the vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And then I did want to back up Vicky's comment about property values. I work for the National Association of Realtors, and technically dispensaries will always tell you, oh, it will not hurt property values. They mean for the town in general. If it's on your street, it's a guaranteed hit to your property value, guaranteed hit to resale. You'll add 2 to 3 months, guaranteed, having a dispensary on your street, and your property values do suffer. That's all. Thank you. I appreciate your time. You have a good evening.
Thank you. Any other comments on this side? Chris?
Chris DeBracchio, 9526 West Ogden. And I wasn't aware of this until I saw it in the landmark. So I don't know about this, as Trustee Ketchmark said, where this notice was given, because I'm right next to it. And this is besides, I knew there was the Planning Commission, but that was in the landmark. And then we knew this tonight. So I don't think it was very well publicized to the neighborhood. Now, my wife and I own the property directly next to this. So as both property owner and nearby resident, I will be directly affected by this. Everyone says Imperial Oak, but it's multifamily. I have a 3-bedroom apartment up there. My kids live there. My wife's grandparents live there. We all live there. 5 generations. Been there since the building's been built, 55. I've watched, the last year, the village buy up all my neighbors. You guys bought the building, the two apartment buildings. We bought the Moose Lodge back in the day. You bought the gravel lot. And the last one you did is just acquired this building in question. Was told these buildings were going to be torn down after you bought them. Still up. Still up. No one living there. These are my neighbors. My only neighbor is the village of Brookfield. No intention of tearing them down. Actually, we're probably going to remodel this building, probably for it doesn't have to adhere to new construction code. That's why the remodel, probably. I mean, not that it doesn't have to adhere to code. I'm not going to sit there and say that, but there's new construction code and then there's remodel code. We all know that, right? We have 2 bus stops there. I'm not thrilled about 2 bus stops next to my brewery. We have, what do we have? We have Park, we have LT. They're going to sit right in that parking lot every morning. That's what you're going to have. That's what we have there. I was promised neighbors. I was promised luxury apartments. I was promised commercial with residents above it. Do we really think this is how we should start off this corridor with a dispensary? This is the biggest, largest plat of land that you guys put together. It could be something great. And do you think, I don't care what anyone says. I mean, dispensary is controversial. Do you think this is the way you want to kick it off? I honestly think I'm going to be sitting with empty land behind me after this. I think this is very short-sighted. It'd be one thing, like if you were thinking about it, later on or something when people are already there, and then you would have the residents' opinion if they wanted this here. But we're 17 years through this TIF, and it hasn't been a great TIF. I don't know the exact number, 2 million compared to other TIFs, not that great. Didn't even have enough money in the TIF to buy all the property next to me. We were borrowing on it. Maybe that's why we can't knock down the buildings. I have no clue. The alley, there's talk about the alley. The alley is terrible. There's no way that's gonna take any traffic. I mean, I don't know who's gonna pay for that. There's no money in the TIF. I still have my alley. This doesn't address any of the questions. There has not been anything put into this area forever. That parking lot at the old Moose Lodge is still the parking lot from the Moose Lodge. I mean, there's nothing been done over there. You know, the TIFs for development. And, you know, and I'm talking about this because if the zoning is approved, then we have another meeting. We have another meeting that you guys have to sell them the building because you own the building. So it's not over. We have another meeting. What incentives are they gonna ask for? What are we gonna do? What are they gonna pay for? What are they expecting? Is this all about tax? Is this about tax? I mean, if it's about tax, you know, you might as well say it's just about tax because, you know, and I don't, to tell you the truth, I thought the figures were off tonight. Oak Park only does $5 million a year. It only does about 200,000 benefit to you. I don't know. I think you guys need to get a number exactly what you think you're gonna get. I know a lot of people promise a lot of things. Yeah, Oak Park, 2024, 225 benefit to Oak Park. That's what it is. I don't see this dispensary doing better than Oak Park's, but maybe I'm wrong. Who knows, right? I think the ironic thing is we're using increment money to purchase this property. And we all know what increment money is, right? It's money that we went out for and we freeze the tax assessment, and then we take it above, anything above and assessed value, we put that into a TIF and we spend it for redevelopment. And where does that money come from? Well, that's other money that was from other taxing bodies. Well, who's the other taxing bodies? Schools mostly. And you're gonna take the money that from schools, purchase a building and buy a dispensary. I personally don't like those as optics. I don't know about you guys. I mean, it's supposed to be used for redevelopment. Is this redevelopment to you? Once again, I just want to, clarify that it just strikes me as incredibly short-sighted. I wouldn't be, remiss to sit there and not bring this up, so I will. I also find it difficult to reconcile this proposal with past decisions made by the village. 14 years ago, I was told, we don't want late-night licenses in this town. We don't want that kinds of business. I'm like, I didn't like it. I absolutely didn't like it. But I was told, we don't need the tax money. We don't need that type of business. You don't have a late-night license anymore. If someone would have told me 14 years ago, the village is gonna buy up all the land next to you and sell it to a dispensary, wow. We don't want this type of business. We don't want other people coming. I was told we don't want other people coming from other towns to come in our town for this behavior. I think if this area is truly intended for future mixed-use redevelopment, including higher-end residential and luxury condominiums, which I was pitched on it being, I guarantee placing the dispensary at the front door of this development hurts those long-term goals. We should be asking whether this decision enhances future residential investment or make the investment more difficult. Because if that's the case, why did we buy those other two buildings? Because we might be sitting on those for another 20 years. I don't see who's going to build there. I don't know if they're going to build there, if they're going to live there. After spending millions of taxpayers' dollars and waiting decades for meaningful redevelopment in the Congress Park area, I believe Brookfield could do better. We should be aiming for kinds of businesses and developments that strengthen our community, attract additional investment, and then create a destination that residents can be proud of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris, for coming out. Anyone else on this side have any further public comment just related to the cannabis dispensary issue? One more time, anybody on this side? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, was there someone? I think she's with Chris, so she was getting ready to leave. Is there someone else that would like to make a comment that I'm not seeing? Oh, yes, if you could please come up. If you could just state your name, please.
Hello, my name is Christopher Isidoro, and I'm a former LT student, and I am a current volunteer at Share Food.
You know,
Share...
give me one second. Could you close the door, Robbie, please, just so, we want to be able to hear this gentleman. Just give me 1 second so everybody can hear you. Thank you, sorry for the interruption.
So my name is Christopher Isidoro, and I'm a former LT student. I'm also a volunteer at Share Food, Share Love Food Pantry here in Brookfield. And we moved to Brookfield 3 years ago for a better life. We moved here from Indiana. We were right next to Gary. And in Indiana, it was really dangerous. There was a lot of gangs, violence, and many drugs, and many dispensaries there. And when my mom found out she was pregnant, we moved from Indiana for a better life. We heard from our friends and families that Brookfield is a really safe and kind place for everyone. So we decided to move here to Brookfield. And we did not know about the dispensary that they wanted to make. And we did not hear until one of our neighbors knocked at the door saying that there's going to be a dispensary right across from the street I live in, from the house. We currently live in 4023 Du Bois Boulevard. And I don't want my little sister, her name is Addison, and she's currently 2. I don't want her to live seeing that there's a dispensary right across from the street, and I don't want my friends or families that are currently walking the streets or playing around, riding their bikes, hanging out with their friends to see that there's a dispensary, that there could be possibly violence. And I know they said that there could be improvement on the land, but otherwise, I don't see why they should put dispensary. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and I have to compliment you on how well you spoke, and you didn't have any notes or anything. I really have to compliment you. That's sincerely. Any other public comment at this point related to dispensary? There's going to be, again, at the end of the meeting, there's a chance for general public comment. Okay. Do the board members have any other questions or comments or discussion right now at this point? There's no vote tonight. This will probably be put up in 2 weeks for a potential vote on the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation. Anything else from the village board at this point?
No, I appreciate the public comment.
Okay. All right, thank you for everyone coming out, sharing. There will be a meeting on June 22nd. Well, there will likely be a vote on the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. There will be a chance for public comment at the beginning of that meeting, as there always is on every agenda, so thank you. Okay, we have one other item up for discussion, and that is a consideration of a proposed placemaking improvements for the village owned parcel at 8921 Fairview Avenue. Again, we have a detailed packet related to this. We have a very detailed memo from Deanne.
Thank you.
I think Libby's going to. Oh.
There it goes.
So Libby, I mean, do you want to go ahead with the presentation, or?
Yes, I'm going
Thank
to go
you.
ahead with that. I'll make it very brief. And we do also have Michael Bailey here, and he is the Director of Local Governmental Affairs, and it is through his office that this application was done. So after going to the State of the Village and also to the Business Roundtable that Brookfield hosted, the The Realtors Association has recognized the number of projects that are in the works and various economic development projects as well as placemaking projects. One example is what is being done at the Brookfield shops through an economic development incentive program. So as part of that, they approached us after the State of the Village, and they asked if we would consider being part of a proposed placemaking improvement. It's a small one. As you can see, there's 2 levels. One is for the placemaking for up to $7,500. And the location that they looked at was in the little tip. We call it the triangle tip. That portion is owned by the village. And as you're aware, part of the discussion at the State of the Village was the upcoming development that's coming there with 27 units and commercial space. And there was some discussion even with the developer as to what could that be there. Since then, they did apply for the grant, and Brookfield, there's a rendering of a proposed site, what it could look like. It's not carved in stone, for what that little tip could look like, which with the placemaking money that was there. And since then, we were notified very recently by Michael that Brookfield was granted that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael to talk about any specifics with that.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. If you could state your name for the record, please.
Of course. Mr. President, nice to see you again, and members of the board. My name is Michael Bailey, one of the local government affairs director for Illinois Realtors. Would love to just kind of piggyback off of what Libby said. Yes, we have noticed a lot of economic development as well as some opportunities to partner with the village. When discussing and meeting with village staff and with officials as well, we've seen a willingness to work together. And so this initiative was actually an idea of local realtor Kenya Williams. When it comes to these types of grants, and this is kind of a little bit in the weeds, but how the process works is we have to have a sponsoring realtor. Typically that realtor is local. Like I said, Kenya lives in Brookfield. Kenya approached me and we chatted with Libby a little bit about the idea about this placemaking grant. I reached out to Libby and Deanne to kind of get some ideas on what exactly the village might be looking at. And we kind of landed upon this proposed site, kind of welcoming individuals in Brookfield to the village and kind of utilizing the space as a way to kind of just stop, rest, relax, and reset before carrying on with your local businesses. So just a little bit about this. We were able to secure $7,400 in this grant. It is a reimbursable grant. So what that means is that the village spends $7,400 or $7,500. When I had talked with Deanne, that was the amount that we had appropriated, so that is the amount that we have available, $7,400. The deadline to submit invoices is November 15th, and then essentially the only thing that the village needs to do is to ensure that the project is completed by the end of 2026. No staff time was devoted to grant writing. This was everything that myself and my colleague Alex Pena did. So happy to try and take any questions. This was a little bit of spur of the moment. I wasn't necessarily prepared to be here tonight, but want to do my best to answer as many questions as you guys might have.
Thank you so much for your time and effort, and Kenya has been a great asset to those. I know she's helped out with the shops and the shop selection committee and other projects within the village, so we appreciate the proactive steps by your organization. Is there any concern about, the deadline of getting it done with when they might start construction on the triangle? Can these things go hand in hand, or?
There was some discussion about that in terms of whether that very tip would be affected by construction. We have reached out to Hancock. Right now, we're just looking for direction on if the board is interested in continuing in looking into it. Based on preliminary kind of review of that little site, it's so small that it's not anticipated that it's going to be affected. Short of, I guess, a bulldozer running across it. But there's plenty of other space. There's enough space that even once the construction gets started, that little tip shouldn't be affected.
Sure, and I like the renderings a lot. I just know there's major construction going on immediately adjacent to it, and I'd hate to see anything damaged, but
right.
Those are logistics that can and possibly should be worked out, so. I'm sorry, questions from the board?
Yeah, I think it's amazing to activate a space. My only thought is to maybe not do the signage part because we're going through that logo
Process,
and
right.
branding process. So putting a sign there that then might not align with that process seems like maybe not the right way to spend the funds, and maybe that's something we could invest in later down the line. And if they need to be expended this year by November, more in the like bike racks, benches, landscaping section. So that was my only concern, was the sign itself.
I had the very same thought, that I love the seating area and the bricks and the landscaping, but that maybe we hold on the signage area, but I really appreciate you coming forth with this as well. This is wonderful.
I like the general idea of this. Our property goes up to that sidewalk. So where the blue star is, to the left of that sidewalk that goes up to Fairview, that's the property border for us, correct? So I measured that as 50 feet. And the average width of this is 15 feet. I know we've seen some renderings from the development that had part of the point of this being landscaped, part of their property being landscaped. It seems like this should all tie together. I don't know how you will access this. I think at the minimum, the design has to have much more review. I think $7,500 is extremely light on completing this. And then we are on the hook for whatever else there is, but it just seems like this should be tied together with whatever the developer is doing there with his part. And I think this could be something very nice, bring it all together, but by doing this at this point, I'm not sure how that works. The other comment I'd make too is looking at it, there is over 300 square feet of pavers out there right now. When we did Brookfield Avenue, we had done a 3-foot edging along there. Those certainly, and those are the same pavers we have on Brookfield Avenue. I would think if we do something with pavers here, maybe we want to reuse those pavers so they match what else is in the business district there. But the timing of this, I'm not sure how this works or the cost.
Sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just thinking in connection with that is, I think any of us who've been on beautification or ever know like that anything you put here, like the benches or a garbage can, like those really add to the cost, a lot of that, and not to mention, I think the brickwork, to your point, Trustee Ketchmark, is quite expensive, so anything that we could reuse, especially to keep the design consistent with the rest of the area there, would be a really nice addition.
And I'll follow up on those points. First of all, thank you so much to you and Freya, was it?
Kenya.
Kenya, excuse me, Kenya, for your interest in this space, in placemaking in Brookfield. Thank you so much for that. My comments are more about the specific proposal. One is a smallish detail. It's that I'm concerned that the rendering that is in the packet and that's being shown doesn't match what's in the proposal. And my concern about that is because when things like this go out to the public and go out in the landmark and are shown around town, and then that's not what's installed, I think it erodes the public's trust in us as a village. So I caution using something like that when I don't think, well, first of all, the proposal doesn't have that. And then beyond that, I echo Trustee Ketchmark's concerns about the costs. I absolutely trust his thoughts as he owns a landscaping business in town and knows those costs very well. I also am a landscape architect and know those costs, and what is shown and even what's in the proposal can't be done for $7,500. I wish it could, because that could be beautiful. I agree. I don't think that the sign should be there. I think that it actually detracts from what we've done with the gateway signage on the other corner. But it would be nice to go forward with something on that corner. in the interest of ideas for being able to do that, I think that we need to work with a design professional, be it Hancock or Wright, another landscape architect, in order to come up with a proposal that is cohesive with what's already been done on Grand. I think it's essential that the materials be the same. We don't not put concrete pavers in there that are gonna look less nice than what we've got in the rest of downtown that would lessen that corner and lessen the downtown. Like I said, I think a design proposal would be extremely helpful, or a design professional would be extremely helpful in this, and it needs to be thoughtful and consistent with what we've got in the rest of town and the previous construction projects to meet our brand. This, in fact, would be a prime project for a full-time urban planner on staff, someone who's already a design professional, who would be concentrating on the overall planning of the village, and who would think comprehensively, maybe ahead of time, for where we can put these sorts of pocket parks, so that we're not chasing grants and trying to catch up with design. So perhaps at this point, what we need to do is work with White or with Hancock to come up with something consistent that would work in the budget of this particular grant to improve that corner, maybe with plantings and benches, bike racks.
I'm sorry, did someone else? Is this the type of grant where, I mean, the signage is a key part of getting the grant? Because I tend to agree that I love the sign, but I was thinking the same thing with the possibly new branding or new signage coming forward. And, I mean, it's a substantial part of the thing. If we eliminated the estimated cost of $2,100 and just put that back towards, again, I don't do this for a living, but I was a little nervous about the price of doing all this for $7,500, but would our chances of getting the grant or securing the grant or having the grant be decreased if we took out the sign and just put that money towards, I mean, the other materials that might get us closer to $7,500?
So, Mr. President, the grant has already been secured.
Okay.
It's a reimbursement, so it's kind of like use it or lose it. If you guys do redesign kind of that signage, I think I would have to submit an amendment to the National Association of Realtors and just say, hey, the sign is out, but the big essence of placemaking is it needs to be, and kind of the big criteria that I, as well as my fellow government affairs directors across Illinois and across the nation, we have to ask ourselves when submitting these grants is this a place where I can sit and have a cup of coffee? So traditionally what we're looking at is kind of the barrier to entry is very, very low. We're looking at potentially just like the installation of benches. It also needs to be on public land. When it comes to the rendering and the design, as well as kind of the design breakdown, that came from the village.
Yeah, Dee worked with staff on that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and there is, my understanding is there's some leeway with that, because at the time, and that's a good point with the signage for the grant, for the application, everything hadn't been lined up yet for the branding, but there is a little bit of wiggle room in terms of what type of bench, how many, where can they be moved, or the bike racks. So there's some options with that. You know, the other option is not to pursue it and wait until all of the branding is completed and.
I'm sorry.
Which is completely an option. I will say, if it doesn't get done this year, I can certainly try and resubmit for next year, but there's a possibility it might not get approved.
Can I ask if there's a possibility of resubmitting for a slightly different corner? Is that an option?
Possibly. The grant window has waxed, so it's not, currently all the funds have been expended for this year. Mm-hmm. Traditionally, what we see is these funds open up in January, so I try and get all of my projects lined up like December, sometimes in November. This was kind of a spur of the moment, and so I worked with Libby, and we were able to I was actually the last grant awardee for the year for this. You know, and again, I'm competing with my 10 of my other colleagues throughout the state of Illinois, as well as the 100 other government affairs directors throughout the nation. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for your work on it. I don't want to diminish that.
No
in
worries.
any way. I asked because I got a comment from a resident and a commissioner that in this exact same area, but behind the current Village of Brookfield sign, what we don't have are benches in that area. And what about the possibility of adding built-in benches to the back of that sign, and perhaps even further improving that corner? Certainly you could sit and have a cup of coffee there. That's why
Absolutely.
I bring it up.
If it's vacant and it's village owned, I can try and make a case for it.
Okay, that's great.
Is there a thought that we could, I mean, because the grant has basically been secured, is there something, the thought that we could do some kind of scale back? And it's just that, and I understand why the timing of it is difficult. If the construction wasn't going on there and everything else, I do worry about. But if we could put some benches, some bike racks, and some pavers in, for not exceeding $7,500 or somewhere in that range, with the possibility to expand and improve it later on with the sign or something like that, is that a possibility?
I think we can look into it. Mike, you have a better
Yeah,
grasp
yeah.
of this
So it
particular
would
grant.
we'd probably be able to do the benches, do the pavers, do the bike racks. The thing is, probably we wouldn't be able to do the sign then.
And I think the board, if I'm reading the board correctly, we're okay. I mean, we think that general overall sign looks good, but if we weren't in the big process of possibly rebranding and wanting to have everything look uniform, and knowing, and again, I know these are just back of the envelope estimates and stuff, but I find it hard to imagine, knowing what other projects have cost, that we would get a sign and all these things in here for $7,500. If we, a little more conservative and use the $7,500 for, I mean, I think the key priorities, as you indicated, that the benches are a priority. I mean, your proposal talks about 1 to 2 park benches.
Yes, that was the proposal I worked with Libby.
Okay.
So Libby provided those numbers and those estimates. So if you guys wanted to do 1 to 2 benches or 3 to 4 benches, you know, I can certainly
But
talk
even
with
if it was 1 to 2 benches and a bike rack and some of the landscaping, and we can get that done for $7,500 legitimately, then, I mean, is that something the board is interested in?
I am, as long as, like what Trustee Hendricks mentioned, that it's gonna match all the other stuff that we're planning for Grand. I just wanna make sure that it's, like you said, it's cohesive and is going with the design that we have for everywhere else. But yeah, I think it's good.
Stevie, not to put you on the spot.
But go ahead.
The black benches, the steel benches that, I mean, some years ago, I remember those being about $1,200 apiece. That was a while ago, too.
Our existing benches that we have as part of our streetscape can run between $1,500 and $2,500, depending on environment and cost of material. So $7,500, I would anticipate, would give us 3 to 4 benches, definitely no pavers, no signs, no money for landscaping. We currently have already purchased 2 of the windmill, sustainable use of
Oh, the bench.
materials.
The bench made out of wind
Turbine
blades.
Yes, turbines, wind turbine benches.
benches. Oh, you
So we
did.
have purchased 2 wind turbine benches. What we are looking for now is the artist who is going to wrap those benches. And the intent is to make them Brookfield art, so Brookfield-centric mural on the bench around it. The intended location was Creekside Park. We're redeveloping the park just east of the downtown metro station, so it is within that transit district, right down the street from a coffee shop. So if there is flexibility in the use of this, it will be specific to public amenity within the downtown area. My recommendation would be we allocate these funds towards some existing projects that were already purchased, but now this can enhance it, give some Brookfield identity and maybe place one of those a little closer to this triangle area, or potentially relocate this to Creekside, east of the Metro downtown. We have a lot of, I think, flexibility in how we can use this, and I'm just getting excited in my head, Michael, listening to the work that a resident put into wanting this as well. I don't want it to go to waste. It ultimately is up to the board and how we should allocate. But I think we have some really excellent alternatives, not specific to this concept. I'm just not seeing this concept meet a $7,500 maximum threshold.
Yeah, no worries.
And Mike, you've been very upfront. I mean, what is the likelihood of us, if we do a total change in direction? I mean, I guess there's a couple possibilities. We could do, you know, it's been approved for this year. We have to do something that we could finish by November. If we resubmit for a complete, you know, as opposed to just changing this design to have 2 benches, no sign, and some bricks, versus moving it to a completely different location, is it likely, what is the chances of us still getting the grant for this year?
I'm a pretty good grant writer, so I'd probably have to go 50-50 at this point in time.
And what is the likely, if for instance, if we use this, I think what I'm hearing from you is if we use the 7,500 to scale back this project, that if we wanted to scale back this project, as long as there were some benches, if we did 2 benches and some landscaping and kept it around 7,500, that would be allowable for this year?
Yes. So, for example, previously, I worked with the Oak Park Area Association of Realtors and secured a pollinator garden, and not wastewater runoff, but that's not the right term. A rain garden, that's the better term, for the Village of Forest Park. And so we were able to do that for $7,500. Working currently with the Village of Glendale Heights on a pollinator garden there. So, you know, with that $7,500, you know, depending on what you want to do, it can go pretty far, it can go pretty short.
And if we did come up with something that we use the 70, I mean, it's an annual thing. Is it if we get one this year, we're not likely to get one next year? Is that kind of like take your turn and wait a couple years?
It's kind of like one of those. Again, I'm a pretty.
I appreciate that.
I like to look out for my cities and towns and villages that proactively work with realtors.
Sure.
That is one of the reasons why this grant exists, is to help create, inform, and strengthen partnerships with local associations like the Main Street Organization of Realtors and the Village of Brookfield.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know a place that we could use for new benches.
The Historic Society. Historical Society.
The old train station.
They're pretty awesome.
Okay, but I guess what I'm trying not to put Mike on the spot, I'm asking if we completely change locations, I think what I'm hearing, it's a 50-50 chance that we get the grant if we move to a completely different location. Whereas, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, if we keep this location, we're pretty much safe spending $7,500 in some way. Is that correct?
I would say that is correct, Mr. President.
Okay, so that, I always envision my job as trying to frame the issue just so you guys can make a choice. So I know, you know, Trustee Ketchmark has a good idea for another location, Trustee Hendricks has a good idea, Stevie has another location, but what I'm hearing is that because just the timing of these things and the way they happen, we have to have a project finished by November, and Mike's being very honest that if we've been approved for this location, and if we change it, it's a 50-50 shot. So I'm just looking for
Nothing's preventing me as well from potentially submitting another grant for next year, so just keep that in mind.
Well, but I guess that's the other thing that I was asking. If we submit and take the 7,500 this year, our chances of getting another grant for next year are not likely. I guess the other scenario is that we forego this grant this year, and then we have a better chance of getting it next year with the triangle. I don't know, the construction of the triangle property is, maybe that's more ready to go with putting something in there that matches what they have in terms of the time frame.
Well, it looks like, if all goes well, the triangle will get developed starting next spring. If, we understand that this is not a done concept. This was nothing more than, here's an idea that Mike used with staff to say this is what we could do here. We could certainly meet with, if we keep it at this location, take out the sign, meet with his landscape architect, understand what, I don't know exactly where they're putting trees or what they're doing, and make sure this complements what they're doing. If we stick with the benches and we stick with some bike racks, ensure that it matches what we have right around the corner on Grand Boulevard, we can do that, and we would do that. Staff is here really, and this was kind of put together at the last, there's a grant. We go after grants that we can, the grants that make sense. Let's try to secure, this is not a big grant, no offense.
No, it's.
We like all grants, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, it's not the end of the world. If we don't get this grant, and we want to do something at this corner or other corners, this is a TIF district. We can use TIF dollars generated by this development or others that we can invest and use the way that we want to.
That's why I was trying to lay out, and I'm just trying to lay out the scenarios of, if we forego this grant because it's just the timing isn't right with the construction and project, going on there right in that location, our chances of Mike getting us a grant next year that we can plan out more for another location that maybe it's not in a TIF district, whether it's the Historical Society or the Creekside Park or something like that. I think that's one option the board consider. The other option is piecing together whatever project we can for $7,500 on this. But I appreciate Mike's honesty in saying that if we change locations completely, we lose we face the possibility of getting no grants at all. 50-50. Right.
I can be very persuasive.
I understand. So
Apparently there was someone from NAR in the audience here tonight, so connected with him.
So I'm looking for direction from the board.
So is there harm in asking, I mean, okay, we have this potential of doing something here at this corner. Can you go back to the powers that be and say Brookfield is looking to change the location? I mean, are we automatically not at this corner anymore? You get what I'm saying? I mean, is there harm in asking?
I believe that closed mouths don't get fed. So I'm an individual that says there's no harm in asking. The worst they could say is no.
In which case, we could come back to this corner.
Or forego it and go for a grant for next year. Those, I guess that's what Mike, if I'm reading that correct. So the next question is, which location, other than this, are we proposing? You've suggested the Historical Society, Trustee Hendricks suggested the area behind the other Brookfield sign, Stevie suggested Creekside Park. Can we come to a consensus that we don't want to, I don't think we want to send them back with 3 potential other sites.
I don't know that
Does it
I'm
have to be
prepared to
vacant
answer
land?
that with costs and things, but I think the question is, can it be moved or not? And then do we need to have a further conversation after that?
Right.
It seems like all of those might be
Moot.
different amounts of investment.
Yeah, different amounts of work. When it comes to, again, that placemaking, again, it's the benches, but it also has to be on vacant village-owned land. So when I think of Historic Society, I've not seen your Historic Society, so I'm not sure how large or how developed it is.
It's right out here. It's,
Yeah,
Then I probably passed it.
it's village property.
Yeah, village property, okay.
So, yeah, just for that 7,500, that's what I was going to confirm. It has to be a new outdoor public space. Does that mean undeveloped at all, or would there be an option to, like Trustee Hendricks said, to do benches, since we just finished that streetscape project?
I think it has to be kind of, I
Vacant.
believe it needs to be more new and underutilized. I
I
can,
mean, that's
again, I'm always happy to have a conversation with the National Association of Realtors.
well, here, Libby, you're familiar with all 3 proposed alternate sites. Maybe you could, and I appreciate Mike's spirit of saying, well, let him ask. I mean, can
Yeah.
we let him ask and come back in 2 weeks?
Absolutely. I
So
mean, the whole point was to see if there was an appetite to move forward. There was a really quick timeline for Mike to be able to get this, to turn it in. But the limitation was it has to be an empty space for the
Sure.
creative placemaking. So
And I
this was
appreciate
one of
the
them, and there's
effort
another
Dan put
one.
into it. I mean, it's that area, it's just the timing of the construction
Yeah,
and
no.
everything else. So here, I think the board would be open to if we get an answer, no, there's no way you can move it to another site, or yes, there's a possibility, and you're familiar with the 3 proposed other sites, unless someone else wants to complicate things
Well,
and add
what
a
are the
couple more
3
sites.
proposed sites? I think I'm unclear on those, the
It
vacant
sounds like,
ones.
based on the requirement that it be vacant and not developed, it sounds like the only actual option is gonna be Creekside, because that's a whole new
Project.
project.
So we'd be looking at one other option. Any other ones besides that?
There might be some public comment at the end. I hear see.
All right, well, here, if you come up with another site, otherwise Libby's gonna try and see, Mike's gonna try and see if we can get that other site and come, and Mike, you're doing a ton of work here, I appreciate it on a grant, we do like grants, and I love the rendering of this, and if that building was built and up, I think this would be a nice finishing touch to it. But I remember that when we were talking to Mr. McDonough about his property, that the board actually talked about maybe getting them to improve this space as part of their project, and they were open to all that, so maybe, it's just the timing just isn't working out on that site, but let's see what the possibilities are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, that's the last item we have up under regular business. I'm going to open it up one more time to public comment. Is there anyone on this side that has any public comment? Anyone on this side have any public comment? Steve?
Steve Saburn. I just wanted to elaborate on, well, I don't want to elaborate, but tag on to what had been discussed about the placemaking improvements. It was my impression that that triangular site was going to be improved by the developer who was going to be putting in this development, and they were going to be doing the landscaping. And from what I've been hearing now tonight, it seems like we're kind of rushing to get the $7,500 when what is actually done at that site may not turn out to be all that great. The space appears quite, constrained if you're going to be putting in the sign, the seating, the landscaping, the bike racks, and the proximity to adjacent streets, Brookfield Avenue, Fairview, makes it kind of, uninviting and away from the downtown. I mean, you got all these streets that you got to cross to get into this little triangular spot. We kind of talked about the downtown Brookfield sign. When you did that seating wall, there were people who had said, why not say downtown Brookfield? And I think there was a lot of debate at that time. And then, the village said, let's just stick with the village of Brookfield. Something that Trustee Hendricks had touched on is what I wanted to illustrate, if I could. What you have on the first page is that seating wall where it says Village of Brookfield. And the second page is what could be improvements where you have the seating actually integrated to the backside of that wall where people can sit and gather, because that is a fairly large space that you have there, and it's very open and empty. And another thing that I had thought, and I'll give this to the president, because I thought I had two, but I only have one. Why not have an informational kiosk at that location as well that announces village events and
Send it back this way.
village announcements, upcoming events, whether it's, concerts in the park or the Friday night concerts, on Grand Boulevard. So to, tag on to what Trustee Hendricks had said, I thought that maybe this site would be more ideal for something that would be a little bit more practical, whereas with a triangular site, that was something that was going to be taken care of by the developer who was going to be putting in those apartments at that location. So this was just another location that I thought would be a little bit more ideal and could fall within that $7,500 range for improvements. Thank you.
Thanks. And I think what we heard is that it might not meet the requirements of a, vacant area, but Mike's gonna look into it, and I appreciate your comments, Steve, and your ideas as always. We'll hash this through, and in fairness to staff and everyone, the concept is we're trying to rush something through. I think they're trying to be creative with an opportunity that came forward, and there was discussion with Mr. McDonough and his property development that the village does own that piece. They did indicate they were willing to work with us to see what we wanted at that property, but there was nothing specific that we said that they had to do it or would do it. I think we almost need to wait for that project to be finished and then see what works best there. But your proposal, I'll actually share that with staff, the informational sign, possibility in other locations, so.
Right, if I could just clarify and echo your point. The property we're talking about for this grant is not owned by the developer, it's owned by the village. The developer can't ordinarily develop and do his landscaping on this site, which is, I think, all the reason why staff was, we were just trying to, we knew we had to do something. We want to do it in concert with the developer. We're not sure exactly yet what the developer's gonna do. He's gonna do something. And so we were always intending or planning on complementing the two. It was just, here, we got $7,000, let's try to go get that to use here, but you're raising some points that we need to go back and look a little bit.
And Tim, you raised a good point that it is within the TIF, so we could use TIF funds for that area or work with the developer. And so, again, I think it was a very good discussion. I appreciate all the efforts of staff, Deanne, and Mike. I appreciate all your advocacy on our behalf with the Realtors Association. So I think we gave some good direction and we can move forward with that, so. Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none. Is there any need for executive session, Tim? Okay, hearing that at 8:30 PM, I entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting.
So moved.
Second.
The motion to adjourn was made by trustee Gahuli, second by trustee Kaluzny. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark.
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks.
Aye.
Trustee Naramatsu.
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooly.
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're adjourned at 8:31. Thank you for coming. Where did that last?
I gave the one with the sign over here.